Well, there's a deep concern right now with witchcraft in today's society. I think if you look at magic in the mainstream media, especially in children's movies, one in particular comes to mind that popularized sorcery and magic, spellcasting, etc. And I think you can guess which franchise I'm talking about. And this all relates to the practice of witchcraft and what witchcraft is all about at its core. Some may argue that it's harmless and there's nothing wrong with the belief in magic or casting spells. But what they're doing essentially is trying to control and manipulate forces outside of themselves. But the practice of spells and magic, I guess the problem comes when, because they operate solely on the level of imagination and not in reality, which I think over time can hinder and distort, one's growth, especially with our children.
Ritual to attract prosperity, near nothing else. Okay, so at the first of the month, put a handful of 3 fingers of cinnamon powder in the palm of your hand. Go to the door of your house or work with intent. Blow cinnamon from outside. I am not one that says stuff out loud, but if you like to say stuff out loud, you can say, when the cinnamon blows, abundance will come to stay. And then you allow the cinnamon powder to remain on the floor for at least 24 hours. So, let's get our cinnamon. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think you say it twice, technically. But I don't say, I think it's more about your intent than anything else. Okay, so no, she's just gonna blow it from the door out. Dang, that was a good one. I don't even see it on the ground. And everybody should just do it at the first of the month. See what happens.
A lot of misconceptions that I have run into is that we're devil worshippers, we're in a relationship with the devil, we attack people or curse people needlessly, just that we're evil, that we're not doing good, we don't respect anybody, and we just have anger and evil in our hearts and want to hurt them all.
And what do you think that comes from?
It comes from misconceptions from medieval times, the Middle Ages and everything, where people were afraid of what they didn't know. If there was someone who was more naturally gifted with herbs and nature, then it wasn't what they knew. They knew of their religion, and if anybody was different, it was bad. So that prejudice is from fear, and the imagination grows.
A few months ago, someone actually told me that she is not comfortable with witchcraft in her own life because she was taught growing up that witches performed animal sacrifice and, hurt people and things like that. And I mean, that to me is a wild misconception, but a lot of people who grew up in certain religions were taught things like that because historically that was kind of a driving force behind witches being hidden and misconceived in the first place.
We don't fly through the air on broomsticks. We don't worship any kind of devil because the devil is a Christian invention. The devil was modeled after a European forest god named Cernunnos because he had horns. And in the Middle Ages, the Christians invented the devil because they were misogynistic and because they were anti-nature. So they had to persecute everything that didn't go exactly in their path. So witches were said to worship the devil, and you can read lots of stories, about witches lining up to kiss the devil's rear end. That's nonsense. We are just ordinary people. Witches are ordinary men and women. There are men witches. They're not called warlocks. They're called witches.
We're not all evil devil worshiping people. A lot of times witches can be Wiccan, but not all Wiccans are witches. In the Wiccan religion, they don't believe in Satan, they don't believe in the devil. So that's a huge misconception for people, is that we worship the devil. We hold ritualistic like spells, and we're slaughtering animals and small children, and we ride broomsticks and have green skin and wear the pointy hat and the long black dresses, but that has nothing to do with our magic, with our craft.
One of the most annoying things about practicing witchcraft right now is that people don't really have a frame of reference for it, and so they think that it's very they're very new agey, which it really isn't, and I can explain to you why that's true. And B, that it's like irrational or somehow ridiculous, that if someone is a witch, that they believe that they have powers that just can't be real, that they have some kind of idea that it's like Harry Potter, that we live in this fantastical world that is really trying to escape from reality. And I would say that that is the exact opposite of witchcraft, what witchcraft is and what witchcraft does.
Well, I feel like witches are given a really bad rep and a bad name. And I remember even learning about, the Salem witch trials, and there was no magic happening in Salem. That was just a place where a bunch of witches got murdered. I don't think there was even that many practicing. I don't think there was practicing witches. I don't think that was. I think people need something to have a bad rap, and that ended up getting blamed on witches. I don't know. I feel like a witchcraft, they're not trying to harm anyone. Nobody's trying to harm anyone. Everything I've learned and understood is it's karma. So I don't see anyone going out of their way and intentionally doing something bad witchcraft wise to somebody else. So I do think that it's just something that people don't understand and turned into something in their head. They clearly never talked to a witch or asked a witch, because it's nobody, I don't know. We're not, even if you don't like somebody, we're not putting out bad spells on you. That would come back to me 3 times worse. I'm not gonna do, I don't think witches are out there making bad spells. I'm sure there are, but I don't think that that's a common, they get a really bad rap for that.
So, I think there's this big misconception, that we're we're these either we're, worshiping the devil and, sacrificing animals, and, we have a big cauldron in the woods and, dancing naked under a moon. I mean, there's a million misconceptions that people have about witches. And that's not to say that some witches don't, dance naked under a full moon. I mean, that's a great one, but I think, a big one is that all witches are part of the same exact, practice or religion. That's a misconception I even had.
I feel like we always have an opportunity to teach, right? We can be pissed off all day long that people think that being a witch is equivalent to being a bitch, or that being a witch is a person who is not being careful with their power. And that's one of the things they'll say, well, aren't there bad witches? And one of the ways that I will say that to someone, I said, look, being a witch is about being able to learn how to manifest and learn how to be, like I said, in tune with the earth. So if you can manifest a lot of things, if you can manifest money, if you were a wealthy person, are there good people who have money, or are there bad people who have money? Of course there's both. And that's a power. So the power of your witchcraft, the power of your ability to manifest something can be used for good or it can be used for not so good. For myself, I believe in karma. I believe in the threefold law. I believe that whatever I put out to the universe, whatever seeds I plant, I'm not going to plant tomato seeds and get cucumbers. I'm going to get tomatoes. So if I plant seeds of hope and light and inspiration, then that's what's going to come back to me.
All right. Let me find these herbs though, because I'll at least. So I've been trying to draw in the corner at least what is on the page. Okay, so these are some herbs, but that's not the page of alternative. Okay, so yeah, cloves are protection herbs. O negative thoughts, take cloves and place in hot water. Drink while vigilant. The cloves entering and cleansing negative thoughts. I do not want to drink that. Okay, I'm going to do full cloves in here since I don't have the flower petal it was asking for. I also don't see my tack. Oh, how did I already lose that? But we do have whole cloves, and there's my tack. So the protection jar, something sharp is just as, it's just protection. I feel like sometimes this stuff is used in bad spells. This isn't one of those. This is just purely protection. I was going to say one more thing. I can't remember. Okay, so let's find my page again. Oh, I do have a be cautious with your thoughts. A major thing about, especially with Chaos Witch, everything you're thinking, you're putting out there. So sometimes you could almost like hex yourself with just your own negative thoughts and your own negative energy, getting down on yourself, saying the own, like, oh God, I suck, and things like that. Like you're creating your own negative energy. So definitely watch yourself, because your own energy has that much overpower you as well. Like definitely be cautious of that. I feel like that's a major, especially that's the thing too, when you think you're hexed, like you might not be. You could just be like down on yourself and just kind of having one of those days. Like they happen. So we're doing the fuck off spell jar. And so the airtight container, I believe this was something for weed things. Weed stuff is the best for airtight containers. So first it's write your intention and be specific as possible. It says to do it in blue ink, but I don't actually have blue. This is like, we're gonna do our best. So my intention is, we're gonna take it from this book. I'm just gonna write protection from my own negative energy and others, and then we'll highlight it with the blue. Protection from my own negativity and negativity from others. I don't know why I closed that.
My mother had been dead for a long time, and my father was with my stepmother, and she cut off the whole family. My grandmother didn't mind. She was in her 80s at the time. She didn't understand it, but she didn't object. Other members of my family were a little confused, but who cares? They knew I was the one who moved to California, out of Missouri, so that they knew I was nuts anyway. So it didn't matter. And friends that I've had, a lot of my friends have not been witches. A lot of them have been witches. I don't think there's really any difference. You know, when you're friends and you accept each other.
My mother, I'm sure, feels negatively about it because she's very religious, but she actually has not expressed any, like, malcontent with myself or my sister, who's also a witch, about the fact that we're witches. She honestly has displayed, like, even a slight amount of curiosity, um, which is, you know, intriguing. I thought that people at a certain age become stuck in their ways, but maybe there's more hope than that.
My brother that I'm closest to actually is a witch himself, and so we can connect on that. My mom, who is very much still, a committed evangelical Christian, has asked me questions. But the thing that I appreciate about her is that she has not tried to like talk me out of it or tell me that I'm going to hell or anything like that. She asks questions, I answer them, and she just says, okay, and kind of leaves it at that.
I kept it a secret by just hiding like the books that I read, hiding it behind the guise of really liking Harry Potter. That was a very good kind of undercover way of doing it. Oh, I like this one. Look, it's Harry Potter. But I would go to church and I would read the Bible and I would go to group Bible studies and talk with my father, who's a big Christian. I would basically do anything that needed to be done to make sure that no one knew who I really was. Now, I don't go to church because there is no church for us. I do have group meetings with my coven, but I read books now the same as I did before. I just have everything a little bit more apparent. I'm not afraid to hide the symbols of my faith.
When I first met my husband many, many moons ago, my husband's very logical. There's a logical explanation for everything that happens. If something goes bump in the night, it was the wind. There's something very logical. But as we progress in our relationship and he asks me more questions and he starts understanding and he's starting to be more open to that kind of thing. But he's always been very supportive. He may kind of laugh at something and be like, okay, yes, dear. Yeah, it was a ghost, dear, But everybody, my mom's religious, but has always been sensitive, I think. She's been very accepting. My two best friends are very, very accepting.
Yeah, I'm not like crazy open about it. It's just something that I've ended up doing and I do now. I definitely like make it aware, I'm very vocal on like not believing in like God or believing or just being a supporter of like religions. So, but yeah, I'm not like super open about it. Like, yeah, I'm just not super open about it. I definitely will bring it up though. Like if somebody talks about stones or like once I know that door's open a little, then I'll open the door. I'm just not the one opening the door.
Nobody has ever said, I can't be friends with you because of what you believe, or I can't spend time with you, or I can't listen to you speak. Most people have been pretty respectful and pretty, like, open to hearing more even. And
There are times I'll kind of get quiet and I'll say that's not what's going to happen. I have my belief and you have yours. Agree to disagree and we go our separate ways. Not like stop talking, but we just don't talk about it. I'm open and they know I'm open and I know they're open about theirs. So we just kind of go back and forth and share information now. And when it gets a little much, we take a step back.
My dad, on the other hand, I just found out who my dad was a few years ago. And thanks to my husband's great detective skills and with the help of Ancestry.com, I found my birth dad. Funny enough, my birth dad is a minister. Yeah, that was kind of my karmic joke. And my friend and I were even laughing about it. I was like, watch, he'll be like a preacher or a minister or something. Sure enough, he's a minister. So when we first started talking and he found out I was a witch and I was into witchcraft, I got the lectures. I even one year, like I think it was a couple years ago, he sent me a Bible for Christmas. I appreciate it, and I take that it's done out of love. But it was a little frustrating because I had already told him where my path was and why. And he's like, look, I accept you for who you are and I love you. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. And I was like, okay, that's fair.
Okay. It's by the skull. All right. And then it's fold and put in the jar. And then everything's really in, you're really thinking about what you wrote while you're like doing your intention. And I feel like I've always heard you're supposed to fold it inward toward yourself unless stated otherwise. All right, so we're dropping that in first. Oh, we didn't blue it. I knew it. I was like, I forgot something. I feel like I do this every time. I think I fold the paper and then I have to unfold it. So maybe that's secretly just part of my stage or my steps. It needs its creases. Okay, and then we're gonna do more blue. Ooh, that doesn't look blue. Okay, that's okay. All right, and then it's drop your nails or thumbtack in. Tear up basil and mix with cinnamon and ginger. We don't have that to do that, but that's okay. What we are gonna do is we will mix up the cinnamon and ginger on their own, and we're gonna do salt. I would do a little bowl, but this little thing works as well. It doesn't need much. Okay. Okay. No, technically it says sprinkle in jars, so I will try my best. Why I liked this one was because it did say that you could use tap water, since it is for a way of like purifying your enemies or something. Rainwater, I don't believe that you have to leave it out in the rain. I believe if you were to leave a glass of water and it was a full moon, that water now becomes a glass of moon water. The moon is powerful, and I think that it can energize stuff through your walls. So do keep that in mind, though. If you get a whole glass of water and you don't end up using it and it was a full moon, you do have moon water. So it is as easy as that. Rainwater, though, is a whole different thing. If you can remember to collect rainwater, then go you. I never remember. But it's because we have so little rain here in SoCal. Snow would be cool if you could collect snow and then you just energize it with the moon. All right, so drop top. Okay, so we're going to pour in our water and we're going to imagine it flooding away the negativity. I'm going to go grab a little cup for that, or a cup of water.
As a wordsmith, I tend to look at the etymology of a word, and the word witch comes from the word wicce, W-I-C-C-E, and that means wise. So a witch is a wise person, and it doesn't have to be a woman. It can be a man. It can be any gender. It's really not specific to that. It's just about living your life in a wise way. The wise ways are living your life attuned to nature, living your life with the cycles of the season, and as a member of a community of sentient beings, and not a separate energy outside of that.
My personal definition of witch is someone who believes that they have a power to manipulate unseen natural forces to affect a goal.
I think, there's this common definition that a witch is like a woman with some kind of magical abilities or powers. I don't ascribe gender to a witch. Guys can be witches, non-binary folks can be witches. So to me, a witch is anyone who considers themselves to be a witch, who, is connected to a type of spirituality that includes, magic, nature, herbalism, things, anything really that can be considered part of the occult world.
For me personally, there's so many different definitions and versions of the word witch. For me personally, it just means somebody that is comfortable with themselves and may have a little bit or a lot of magic in them. They're unique. They're different. They may not be cookie cutter. The dictionary says it's, a woman that has supernatural and mystical powers. I don't think the word powers means what media thinks it means. You can be a healer, and that can be your power. That can be your superpower. So for me, witch is very personal and just, it's what makes you special.
A witch is someone who uses the tools of witchcraft in order to engage with the natural world. So a witch is someone who uses spells, incantations, prayers, rites, rituals to connect with the spirits of the land and as a tool for personal empowerment.
Well, the word witch is related to the word Wicca, which is said to be an Old English word that means strong or powerful or wise. Today, witch has a broader meaning, and it's mainly, I think, thanks to the social media. It's taken on a more glamorous, in the Hollywood kind of glamour, not the kind of glamour that means illusion, but Hollywood glamour, and it's supposed to be something romantic and fancy. And if a young woman says she's a witch, that means she's actually working on being maybe a seductress who uses magic. As I see witchcraft, it's a religion. We worship the goddess. I'm an initiated Dianic Wiccan, witch, which means we worship the goddess. No, I pay attention to the pagan gods, but not to the standard brand religions. And I'm a very grounded witch because I don't go out and do a lot of glamorous things, glamorous in the Hollywood sense. That you're not going to find me on Facebook doing that kind of stuff.
Well, I didn't start calling myself a witch until I realized that when I'm sitting there and concentrating on things and thinking about them and manifesting, when I realized that was witchcraft was when I started calling myself a witch. So if you manifest a lot, or if you're just somebody who carries a random rock or stone in your pocket, you're a witch to me. So, even if you're not doing it intentionally with the intent of carrying a rock around for good luck, I feel like you're doing that on accident anyways, or carrying the rock for whatever reason it's giving off. So that to me is what makes you a witch or defines a witch.
The word witch to me is that it's a person who identifies as a witch. Not everybody who practices paganism or even kitchen witchery identifies as a witch. If you identify as a witch, you're a witch. But you could be a Christian and still be a witch. It's very personal. It's a very personal journey.
My cup of tap water. Okay. Now, I don't have a black candle, and I think that's okay. We're going to use this one. A white candle is basically your go-to if you don't have the color necessary. A pack of birthday candles is the easiest way to get all the colors, though, for sure. So, technically I should be doing this at my altar, but that's okay. We're doing it somewhere that I do sit a lot. And we'll see if the wind is on our side. We're going to cover this in wax, and then we're going to actually just keep it on one of my altars. Altar, I don't know how to describe it. They're like my altar, but not my working altar. They're like all the extra stuff. Now, technically, I don't think I'm going to have to wait for this candle to burn all the way out. I use this to put it out. Usually you at least let it burn out on its own, but I always just put them out. I don't allow them to burn all the way out. I'm always worried it's more of a fire hazard than anything. So safety is important. So how we're going to do this is, yeah, we're going to need a lot of wax, but we can at least get it started. But yeah, little sprinkle bottles work really well. Any little tiny jar, like these jars when they're empty are perfect. Okay, let's let that melt a little bit more. The wind is being friendly to us, thankfully. Oh, I didn't end up adding the mint. I was wondering, I forgot a word in there. That's what I get. Okay. That's okay. I guess I wasn't meant to use the mint. I used salt instead. And I didn't end up throwing in whole cloves. Oh, see? And then sometimes you think you're going to use everything and you just don't. Okay. That's how it is. This is sea salt, though. And sea salt, I feel like, is such a powerful just protection on its own. But our fuck off jar should be almost all the way sealed. Fuck off to all the negative energy. Okay, and now cool. And voila.
There are some religions, specific religions, that have a witchcraft practice, Wicca being one of them. I'm not Wiccan, so I can't speak on the specifics of their religion, but it is a specific religion. Paganism is another, religion that many of the followers of paganism will call themselves witches. And then there are some, witches like me, folk witches, eclectic witches, who consider witchcraft our spiritual practice, but not necessarily an organized religion.
Witchcraft can be religious. For me personally, I don't consider it to be a religion, but I consider it to be analogous to religion. Some witches do believe in certain gods and goddesses, and they worship their pantheon and perform rituals and seek those specific deities like guidance and help in performing their magic. But for me personally, I worship nature. I worship the natural world, and part of my practice is developing things that I do in my personal life to connect me with nature and to also help preserve and protect nature.
I don't know if witchcraft is a religion per se. The religion is non-standard brand. It's an earth-based religion. It's called paganism. It's called neo-paganism. There are people who very assiduously worship the Norse pantheon. they call themselves atheists because that word is related to the Norse pantheon. Pagan means people who live out in the country. That's another word invented by Christians. So we're pagans. We celebrate the eight stations on the wheel of the year, which I will explain if you want me to. We worship in many different ways. We worship the old pantheons.
No, witchcraft, in my opinion, is not a religion. It is exactly what it is. It's a craft. It's not a hobby. It is a way of life, but you can be a Christian and still be a witch because the Christian Bible is still full of wonderful messages, but you can still be naturally inclined and play with stones or practice kitchen witchery. Everything, it's just, you have to identify as a witch. You can't be like, oh, you're a Christian, you're a witch. No, it's that person has to say, I'm a witch.
I definitely know witches that would consider it a religion. I wouldn't call myself religious or feel like I'm a part of a religion, but that's because I'm not really praying to anything, which as that was my turn off to it, and why I kind of was a little hesitant to even reading more about it was because I was like, I don't want to go into this praying. I don't want to go into anything and feel like I am doing something wrong if I'm not praying. That's when it kind of feels like religion. And I don't really feel like it's religion. I feel like it's more of a way of life than religion. But I'm also not waking up and praying to something. If I was praying to something, I'd probably feel like it was a little more religious.
When I'm explaining what I do and what I am to people, I'll use the word religion because they seem to be able to understand what that means more. For me, it's more of a spirituality. I guess you could call it a religion. But I'm very eclectic in my craft. I'm polytheistic. I believe in different gods and goddesses. So that's kind of a difficult question because people, when they hear the word religion, it's very organized, and I'm not into the organized religion per se. It's more of a mystical, if you will, spirituality for me.
For pentagrams, not pentacle, I don't know too much about pentacles, but the pentagram is fire, water, air, ground, and then I think your soul is the final star point. Oh my gosh. I didn't label it or anything. I'm kicking myself right now. There's that though. That one's cool just because when I dream, I'll imagine a bright light around me, and I didn't know there was a way to do it in pentacle form. So you can imagine the pentacle around you.
So what is that? When you imagine that? What is that?
So
what is that doing exactly?
when you're dreaming, there's theories that you can go to parallel universes or whatever other planets. Regardless, you should be protecting yourself somehow. And that's one way to do it, is imagining a white light around you, and usually in a circle. You can point with your finger or a wand as well, but I just learned that you can do it like that, and it's the 5 points of the pentagram. So I thought that was cool.
Okay.
Magic is a way of breaking down the membranes of the truth so that we can expand our worldview, see from multiple points of view, and then find solutions to our problems that maybe we hadn't seen before, or find opportunities that we hadn't recognized before, or create allies in the world where before there was no connection. It's about re-enchanting the world through connections that we have with other people, about creating lines of intimacy between different beings, whether that's another person or a place or an animal.
Magic is, for me, I spell it Magick. And the reason I spell it that way is the G is the ground or Mother Earth. And that is connecting us to that divine feminine energy, that groundedness, that the cycles of the earth. And then the K reaches towards the sky, and that's Father Earth, and that's more the ephemeral ideas. That's the idea of taking an idea that lives in the cosmos.
Magic is how one way we do things. We work in very practical ways. You know, I mean, if you don't want to get a ticket on your car, you move your car. But magic is another way to do things, and it uses energy. And you don't always see the energy. People don't always feel the energy, but we set it up and we use it, and it often works.
There are so many different kinds of magic, and a lot of the magic that we do has to do with our intentions. You know, it's not like, hey, I want $1 million, you know, abracadabra, you know, point my wand. And, you know, if I'm not taking any actions, you know, to go out and, you know, earn or find or whatever, the $1 million, you know, isn't just going to come to me. That's not the way magic works for me. But it does play a very big role in that I think the magic is within us, you know, that the higher power is within us to focus on, you know, what it is, what our goals are, and think about the actions that, you know, we want to take to achieve those goals, and set our minds to it and interact with energies in such a way that we can, you know, produce the result that we want, I guess, so to speak.
For me, the role magic plays is it's just one more tool in the arsenal of my life. If there's something that I can't figure out a way to get done by, you know, mundane means, then I will cast a spell. If that means, you know, seeking an answer to a particular problem, or protecting myself from forces outside of myself, be that other people or be that, you know, harm from the world, I don't know. I would say magic plays the role in bringing me peace of mind and also giving me a sense of empowerment.
Magic is about transforming reality according to your will, but in witchcraft, that is known to be done through a shift in perception or awareness. That's the first step, right? So, like I said, you can't just wave your wand and everything is different in your life. But what you're doing with magic is you're opening yourself up to seeing reality from a different perspective. Oftentimes we get very locked in to our visions of what reality of it is, who we are, what our life is like, what the truth is.
This one too I like because it's perspective point.
Oh, yeah.
But it works different ways. So
Can you talk a little bit about that?
so this one is houses that I dream about, actually. So, this one is also like influenced by like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, but that's what it reminds me of in my dream. And then this one was one of mine growing up, this really weird deck. I go to that a lot in my dreams. So, but I've done a piece like this before, but not with as much detail. So I'm going to add a garden, one more little house, and just another like garden stuff. So this one's almost done in a sense, but definitely just needed these two houses. And then this one, I was gonna do a Demon Girls series, but I ended up only doing one. Somebody ended up buying it immediately, so. But then they've disappeared off social media, and I can't find them anymore, and I was saving this painting for them, and I'm not going to anymore. I'm gonna mend it, clean up the legs a little, and then I'm gonna sell it. So
what is art to you?
Um,
Process of painting and stuff like that.
gosh, color manipulation. I love being able to make 5 colors with like 3 different colors just by different percentages. And I like seeing what colors look good next to each other. It's definitely my way of escaping. Selling them is amazing, but selling them also kind of sucks. I get really attached and I want them to sit on my wall before they're gone. So something like this I'm not as attached to, but that's just because I'm making it as I go. Something that I painted out as like a planned thought usually ends up making me sad once I sell it. So I don't know what that is. In pop culture though, that was like, what was it, like the 80s was the satanic panic, which I actually didn't know a lot about. My fiance was explaining it to me how bad it was, where it was just like everyone thought all these Satanists were like eating babies or something. And then I think witches got thrown in there too. And so I realized recently that like, because I even put myself in the category of witch and wear pentagrams, which are for like protection, I get looked at like a Satanist. And so it's like, I kind of think it's funny, but it's also like in reality, like that's just giving a negative, like that's not what it is.
In pop culture, if we're talking movies, TV, music, whatever, there's always going to be misrepresentations of what witchcraft is. And so I think a lot of that, again, comes from just associating everything that's occult must be evil. When in reality, occult, it literally means that which is hidden. And it's called that because of, to my understanding, and again, I'm still learning, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that that word was used because it was something that Christians didn't understand. It was hidden to them. So they called it the occult. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's evil. Again, just like any belief, you can believe anything you want and you can do evil things or you can do good things.
Magic in pop culture is just like any other story that takes place in pop culture. There has to be a protagonist, there has to be an antagonist, there has to be a climax at the end of the story. So one of those characters in there is going to be perceived by somebody else as being evil. But in real life, all of us is just doing whatever we can to preserve ourselves and the ones that we love. And whether any of the normal things that we do to that end are evil, that's all up to the perception of whoever matters.
Yeah, well, there's all, was it Buffy, or who's the famous witch? There's nonsense, Samantha, the one that was on TV years and years and years and years ago. And that was just made up. It was fun. It was entertainment. It wasn't anything close to real. I have a Barbie doll dressed up like Samantha. I don't remember the name of the show.
Bewitched.
Yes.
You have these people that suddenly get into Harry Potter. And they're like, oh, I want to, learn the dark arts and I want to learn potions and spells and I want to be cool like that. Being a witch is not a status symbol. It's a way of life for us. It's who we are. And it's very frustrating and disheartening when you see people walking around with a pentagram. And I'll see people walking around with them on. I'm like, oh, are you Wiccan? Oh, that's so very, oh no, it's very cool. I just like it. And, I'm very big into Harry Potter. And so it's like, I want people to get past the stereotypes. I want people to get past the glamour, the Hollywood. Being a witch is not Hollywood. That is not how we really are.
Where are we going, Sam? Where are you taking us?
Eye of the Cat. It's a cute little witch store. They have a bunch of used books and new books. They also have tarot decks and individual gems or stones. So it's a cute little family-owned place.
Are these stores like this important for witchcraft and witches and people practicing?
Yes, it's nice to be able to go and ask about things. They're usually really informative and friendly. You also get to peek at the books. It's nice because you get to buy things individually. I don't imagine the store is making a lot by selling them individually, but being able to go and pick out specific stones for something, or stones that just are like calling out to you, is nice. They used to have some dried herbs that they would pack too in their own little bags, which is something that I've never actually really seen besides like really tiny little towns. So that's Eye of the Cat's one of the only places I've seen in the city that bags a bunch of stuff individually. But I haven't been there in like 2 years because of COVID. So we'll see what they're still doing and what they still got. They always have a bunch of handmade stuff in there too from community members. So, and they always have a bulletin board as well with a bunch of stuff on there that people can leave there. And I do believe somebody does readings back there, but I've never had any of my readings done there or anything. Satanism and like, it's like the Church of Satan, I think, is bad. Or one of them. One of them is bad. One of them is, but the actual Satanists don't believe in Satan. I think there's like 11 commandments, and like the 11 commandments are just like the other, it's like being a good person. It's like, you always ask somebody to stop before giving them wrath. Like I don't practice them or know them, but Satanists aren't believing in worshiping Satan. And I know that there are, people who pray to things, but like, I don't know. I don't think that Satanism is about Satan at all. Like, I don't think it's about worshiping the devil.
To me, when I think of devil worship, I do think of that, satanic panic of the 80s, and of, being told in my Christian schools and churches that, anything that was not of God was of Satan, and so Christians tend to, when they say the devil, they are talking about Lucifer or Satan. And so to me, we're talking about like two different things. Because are there people who worship Satan? Are there people who worship the devil? Probably, I'm sure there are. None of the witches I know do that. That's not to say that there's not any witches that do that, but from everything I've learned, that's not really what witchcraft is about. I think that's put out there, by Christianity because of a fear.
Yeah, the medieval Christian priests and pope and bishops did it. And one reason they did it was they were misogynistic. And in those days, women, especially older women, especially women who had healing abilities, they were devilish. The doctors were men, and all they did was use astrology for healing. It was the women who actually got down and did the herbal healing, delivered babies. So the witchcraft was associated with the devil by Christian popes and preachers and Protestant and Catholic, but it was almost all Christian, and it was all men, very, very few women.
So the way that the myth about devil worship got attached to witchcraft is when, so we have the divine female, the goddess, the great goddess energy. That's typically, if you're really going to simplify it, right, that's typically defined as the Gaia, the Mother Earth energy, right? And the male energy is typically the great god, is typically considered the horned god, the spirit of the vegetation. And so this is a green god. And if you think of him like Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream, or Peter Pan, Pan means all. So that's the etymology again, the writer in me. Coming back to the wordsmithing, the word pan means all. So a pandemic, a panic, it's all a panacea. So it's all this, the all. We used to have a conference called Pantheacon. So Pan, all, Thea, God, conference, all God, conference. So Pan was green. He was half goat, half man, because it's this virile seed energy of life. So the mother is this energy where we go to rest and we go to grow. And the God energy is this expansive, like yin and yang, where the yang is the male and the outward and the doingness, and the female is the rest and the inward. So the green God has horns, has a beard, goat. He was green. Well, what do you do the first time you're going to take over a culture? You kill the storytellers, right? Or you retell their stories. Or you paint their god red, call him the devil, and say that's who we worship.
So Sam, real quick, can you explain what these rocks right here, what they're for?
So you can use the stones just to sit at your altar, or you can just carry them in your pocket or in your bag. I like to give them to my friends and make them put them in their cars or carry them on them. So it's just energized little stone you get to bring with you. That's nice. I'm going to put this one on my altar though, because it's a little sphere. So, but it's nice that they have them all in bags and individually what they each can be used for. Look at this white jasper. Oh wow, that one's pretty. There's also a bunch of spices and herbs individually, so that's really awesome. I wish I could buy a little bit of all of them, but I don't know where I would put them all either. Some of this stuff you'll have in your kitchen though, like I saw what our mint was earlier. What else would be in your kitchen? Nutmeg. Oh, mugwort is cool that one helps you with your dreams. You can actually smoke that one. Mugwort? Yeah. Rose petals. That one you can just do yourself in dry flowers. Yeah, like rosemary. There's like turmeric too. But some of the stuff can end up in your kitchen, which is nice. I was admiring the little cauldrons.
Oh, that's cool.
You would burn your incense in there or burn stuff in there. Oh, that one's plain. I didn't even notice. They have a bunch of books. They have a whole bunch of beginner books right here, which is really awesome. Especially stuff like herb magic, because it probably breaks down what each herb can be used for, and replacements, like if you don't have something. Tea leaf is cool. That one I've only had my tea leaf read, but tea leaf would be a fun one to learn. Oh, there's the kitty. Hi. Oh my gosh, you are beautiful. Hi. Oh my God, this is such a pretty cat. Are you waiting for the door? Okay. Oh, these are cool. These actually look like little spell kits that I was talking about, how you can just buy all this stuff already, the candle, and it actually comes with everything on there, so they're just ready. Yeah, those are way cool. That's why I really liked this place, was because they have that kind of stuff, which is just a really nice touch. And it makes it a little less intimidating for you as well.
Magic is a process by which you first identify a problem that you want to fix. 2, you figure out some sort of ritual that represents this problem, some sort of behavior, ritual, action, something of the sort. And number 3, you decide that this ritual means that this problem is solved. And then number 4, you perform the ritual and then you let it go be part of the universe. We have to perform the magic and then forget about it, and then the magic works.
Tools are not required, they're just helpful, like all tools are. I mean, you can hit a rock to a nail and it'll have the same effect. It's just the hammer's more effective. So there's some tools that you can have. There's jars are a big thing with witches because you put everything in jars. Candles are big. Stones, eggshells that have been ground up. Those are really useful in multiple ways. For me, I use herbs and spices, just regular food, regular household items. For a garden witch, growing plants. So soil and shovel even would be their items of trade. It just really depends on your specific path.
They're just tools. You don't need them. But it's good when you're doing something to have a concrete symbol to hold in your hand. If you're familiar with the tarot, you know that the tarot has 4 suits. And they are, if I can remember them, swords and wands and cups and air. And witchcraft uses what is called an athame, or a ceremonial knife. And usually it's a double blade and it has a black handle, and you use it you don't stab stuff with it, you don't cut stuff with it, you cut air with it. You've heard about wands. I've got a whole bunch of wands. I don't have a knife. I did, but I haven't had one in a long time. And wands you use to point and to touch. Water conveys emotion. So if you have a chalice, we call it a chalice, it's a glass. It can be a bowl. And water conveys emotion, and it can be cleansing. And air just moves things around.
I work a lot with herbs. I work a lot with, plants, with herbs, with crystals, things that are, I guess, in nature, or things that are accessible. But again, as my knowledge is expanding, I'm working more and more with, with astrology, with tarot. The more I learn about these things, again, I still, feel like a beginner in terms of some of the tools. And so, I think as I learn more, I will probably be using them in more ways, if that makes sense. But, there are so many. I mean, I work with a lot of, I think, like moon magic and kind of like nature cycles and things like that.
A lot of it has to do with intent, words. If I'm doing healing work, I'll use candles, crystals. I'll use my spirit guides, my familiar, who is passed. He's in the spiritual realm, and he still helps me. So for me, it depends on what I'm doing, and I don't necessarily need tools for that. I can being out here, I could pick up a rock, I can pick up a twig, and those can be magical tools.
And then their tarot card collection. I always want all of them. Look, those are in cool tins. Oh no, what is this? They're so cute. Oh, just regular playing cards. Fancy bags. Oh my god. There's a Halloween one. Those are really cute. Those are not bad for $11.99. I secretly just want this, but it doesn't show me any other art. Bath salts. Probably all smell delicious. Oh wow, for writing? Oh, these are all oil. Okay, oils. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so you burn them in the top. Or I think you can put them like on your wrist too.
That's cool. I don't know what it is, but it looks
Yeah,
nice.
I think that's a water bottle actually. But since the water doesn't technically touch the stones, I've never really understood, I guess, the energy through the glass. I don't know.
That's so funny. Look at that.
Yeah, that's way cool.
It's kind of like what the documentaries.
Yeah, kind of, pretty much.
That's
I think I'm gonna pick out a book. Instead of buying a tarot deck, I will buy a book. That's better. Now the problem is I'm gonna want all the books. Magic. Candle magic sounds kind of cool. Yeah, just using the different colors for everything. It's such a pretty book too. Let's see. Dang, working with planets, working with the day. How much is this book? $20. Okay, I think we're gonna do the candle book. That's something I don't have anything on. I want to be friends with that cat, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Oh, actually, let's peek at this one. There's still... Oh, look, there's a kitchen witch. That's what it's so smart. You might as well learn. Huh, how cool. Okay. These are going to be my purchases. I wasn't going to get anything, but...
My hope for witchcraft is that it becomes more and more specific to place and time, So the witchcraft that we practice, or that I practice here in Los Angeles, is going to be different than the witchcraft that's practiced in like Kansas. And my hope is that the witches of the future bring their own background, their own knowledge, their own places into the work, and to let the spirit of the land and the spirits of their own relationships and connections inform that work. I'm looking forward to like a literature of witchcraft. You know, witches are poets, witches are artists, witches are healers, are dancers, are actors, and I'm looking forward to like the arts being a steward of witchcraft in the world and letting it find its own voice. I'm really looking forward to and hoping that we can just get over this idea of like witchcraft as like a spooky, sensational thing. I just don't want to talk about that anymore. Like, I'm done. I don't want to talk about that anymore. It's really boring. It's just not like that. And I hope that we can just all get over that. I feel like witches have a much more interesting point of view to express in the world, which is about their relationship to the natural world and the rituals of honoring the sacred within the natural world and our connection to it. And, you know, witches are environmentalists, they're ecologists, and I think it's just more interesting to talk about that rather than always coming back to the same thing, which is like, is witchcraft about Satanism? Like, where's your warty nose? Like, that's just so boring. I don't want to talk about it ever again. Like, so I think that the more witchcraft gains in popularity, the less kind of groundwork that we have to do every time to like get people to understand what witchcraft is. There's just more interesting things to say about it than just like that it's not about cursing people, you know? Like it's just frustrating to have to go back to square one every single time.
I think the future of witchcraft is coming as we allow more of our personal power to be actualized. So whether you're bipartisan or wherever you're coming from in the world, the more that words like manifest are being used, even though people aren't necessarily, you know, calling that witchcraft, that is what it is. Knowing that you're wise enough that your words have power, because that's all that a spell is. A spell just means to cast your word. Another way that I describe it is for especially the word prayer. People understand that word. It's easy for them. It's been used in a lot of different religions, so it doesn't have any frightening connotations. A spell is a prayer in 3D. So in other words, we put out these symbols, these ideas that represent, like, for example, if you had creative writing block, and you might create an altar that has a fan that represents air, that because air is part of the east, and east is where the sun rises, so new ideas and inspiration and beginnings all happen in the east. So if you had put down a pen and a fan and some feathers and all these things that represent that energy to you, you can show anyone from any religion, it's a feather. Feathers are flight. We know the sun rises in the east. There's a picture of the sun. This is to remind me to be inspired from the divine energy. People, you start taking away some of the words that frighten people and use the common words, then we can begin to grow into that. There's always going to be people who don't understand. And those are the people who don't understand that we need equality for all, right? But if we keep talking and we keep talking about the light and about the diversity and about the free will, then I believe that's the language that's going to open up more doors where people can get rid of their fear, false evidence appearing real.
In the future, I see witchcraft probably becoming more accepted by the groups that still are uncomfortable with it. I see it being more spoken about in day-to-day conversation, and I see us eventually living in a world where we can meet without our armor on, so to speak, and we can come together as witch and non-witch, as, this religion, that religion, all of us together simply as human beings, and talk about the things that matter to each and every one of us without anyone of any group passing judgment on anyone else. So I see witches themselves evolving, and I see the rest of the world evolving too.
Witchcraft is very popular right now, so there's a lot of people exploring it, especially with the quarantine that's happened. People are exploring more because it makes sense to them, or they've been doubting. Depression sometimes does that. Even being by yourself sometimes definitely makes you question. So people are exploring more. So I think we're going to see a rise in paganism and in witchcraft, but it might not last because Christianity and other religions are still very prominent in the world. And they have an iron grip on people. And no matter what, it's going to go back to it. And it flip-flops.
I think I see it being more accepted. Hopefully, having like a social app would be amazing, because that's always what I see is apps trying to do that, but whether it's just not having the funding or having people. So it would be really amazing to have an actual social media app that was of witches or baby witches or just allies of witches. I feel like would be really cool. But like I was saying, how in the UK they have a witch newspaper, like I hope we have that, whether it's just a silly little magazine that like your local city has or something. But I feel like if we were to if a newspaper were to print a witch newspaper, I think that we'd have people gathering and rioting about it for some silly reason. Like, I think there'd be moms that would be angry, like, no, my children cannot ever see a witch newspaper.
I'm hoping it will be more obvious, like there'll be more people that are open about what they're doing. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. Like what I was saying before about social media, and you have a difference of opinion or just difference in your lifestyle, you get it from all sides because you're different. I'm really hopeful that people will be more accepting, if you will, and that more people will be more apt to come out of the broom closet, so to speak. But I'm really skeptical if we're going to be allowed to do that. I think tools and things will become, I'm afraid they're going away. Everything is so digitalized. I'm afraid there won't be books. Everything will be online. I'm old school. I'm an old witch. I like tangible stuff, I don't want a digital candle. I don't want to just click a button and then the flame lights up. I want that energy. I want that heat from that candle. I want to see it flicker. So I'm hoping that technology doesn't take away certain aspects, certain personal aspects of the craft. I'm hopeful, but skeptical.
Like, I see the witches of the future developing an even more sophisticated, grounded, rigorous understanding of what they're doing in their work, and really practicing it, gaining power with it, and working to connect with other spiritual traditions throughout the world.
I believe that as we begin to recognize our vulnerability, we begin to recognize more of our humanity. And the more we become human, the more everyone's going to be accepted, even witches.
I got a sphere of goldstone. It's a good little chunk.
What's the intent for this?
I'll have to actually look that one up. I don't know offhand, but it is going to go on my altar. So it was just pretty. It called to me. I had to have it. And then I also found a candle magic book, and I really like that it talks about using them during different astrology, so different months, and then doing them on certain days. So I didn't realize there was that much more to it. So that's really cool. I'm excited to dive into this. It's all about candle magic. So easy enough. Candles are cheap. And all of it just seems like lighting it at a certain time or a certain day. Or like this one's like around an incense candle. I am excited to dive into that.
And so this is candle magic. What magic do you practice currently?
Right now I've been doing basically just chaos magic and spell bottles. Lots of chaos magic and spell bottles. I call it mostly chaos magic just because it's more intent based rather than me like chanting or like, you know, following the full moon, and they're more just kind of whenever I feel like it rather than following specific days or anything.
Can you? I know you talked about it before, but can you give us just a brief description of chaos magic?
Gosh. Chaos magic is using the powers within yourself to change your current reality with just your thought process and how you think about things and putting your intent and stuff before you do things. And it's just working with your own natural chaos rather than by a book. So that's what I've been focusing on.